Now, this just happened not too long ago after I came home from riding, and this honestly was about a few days ago. I went to my riding barn, which I'm not going to state the name of what it is for obvious and personal reasons, but it was a riding stable. It wasn't a big major one like major big companies that were popular with riding stables around the world. This stable was a short one, but it also sells eggs from chickens and even ducks, and even we do have pigs. They recently just got rid of their two cows, one of them being sold, and another one that was grind up and turned into meat to be sold to markets. Now, to be honest, my mom dropped me off as she had to go to the vet, which of course was another town that was 20 minutes away from the barn. So, I did my riding lesson and there was no problem. However, the coach had to go to work after she coached me, and apparently she said that she couldn't leave me by myself, but she had to go to work. Now, this did not happen to me at all. This was the first time that it's happened to me. Now, to be honest, I wasn't really sure what was taking my mom so long. So as I texted her, she said that she was going to be a little longer as the vets were busy, as there was a recent emergency which regarding a girl who lost her dog, which is very unfortunate. Now, as my coach left and told me certain rules while I'm by myself. Now, there was a policy that the barn had stated saying that I wasn't allowed to be on my own without supervision, as during the pandemic going on, as we all know today, it's unacceptable. But not only that, it's been an issue going on with certain individuals. Now, the owner asked me not to be on the property, but I had no choice. My mom was not there, and the coach had to go to work. So I couldn't walk anywhere as it would take too long to walk, and plus, it's dangerous to walk or hitchhike around, especially by yourself. I kept calm and decided to just hang around the barn. As soon as the coach left, I was just relaxing on one of the lawn chairs and was just chilling, just enjoying the view of the barn and the fair land, or at least the plain fields. Now, there were some horses that were grazing around, so I watched them for a little bit. But then I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. It looked like a mysterious figure. I honestly had no idea what it was. It seemed to be a big black figure. At first I thought it could have been a bear, but that was quite confusing, as a bear standing on two hind legs wasn't possible unless if it was attacking or something. I looked over and thought that maybe it might have been a Bigfoot, but I was wrong. Whatever it was just looked at me, and it gave out such a weird shriek which I couldn't describe. It sounded like if someone was screaming in pain, and that's what really terrified me. It then ran across the field, healed, and then ran across the road and to another field, and ran as far as it can. I didn't see it yet anymore ever since that time, but when the rain started to rain down, I hid myself underneath the shed, or at least inside the shed where they keep all the tools and that. As I was in there, I heard that shriek again, and this time I was more terrified. I ended up realizing what had happened and thinking whatever it was could have been a creature or probably something known to man. My mom came and picked me up, and I didn't say anything to her about what I just witnessed on the car ride home. But then when I looked on Facebook, on my messenger when I got home, the barn owner messaged me and said that I wasn't allowed to be on the property unsupervised for obvious reasons, which you probably already know. I explained to her what happened, and I apologized to her for being there by myself, explained about the vet situation. She understood, and she asked me if anything was okay while I was there. I told her about that figure I just saw, and she honestly said something I really did not expect. She said whatever I discovered was a skinwalker. And for those of you who don't know what a skinwalker is, you might want to look that up, as talking about them can really attract them. I never knew that these things were real, but maybe my mind was playing tricks, or maybe I was dreaming. I unfortunately will never know to this day, and this still is running through my mind. Now, this happened at least maybe a year or so ago, but I honestly can't really remember. But we're just gonna say that this happened to a friend of mine. She went to this one farm that was a riding barn, and of course, she really liked the barn. The stable had pretty good property, and it was acres of land, and she could honestly stay there for as long as she wants, as she's been there for quite a few years. One day, though, she was just finished her lesson and she was waiting to be picked up from her mom. Now, her name, we'll just call her Olivia. Olivia was just waiting for her mom to show up, and as she was waiting, she heard a voice what seemed to be sounding like her dad calling. "Olivia," a voice called. Olivia was quite confused on why her father would be calling her. But so far as she knows that her father was at work, so there was no possible way on how he would be there. "Olivia, are you there? I need your help," her father said urgently. But of course, Olivia was obviously confused. Her other four friends were still in the barn, so she went out in the field. But as she went out in the field, she couldn't really see what it was, as the sun was starting to go down, and it was starting to get dark, so she obviously couldn't see very well. She looked over to see that there was a figure standing near the fence. Obviously, she was confused, thinking that maybe somebody was impersonating her father, or was most likely caused maybe by somebody pranking her. But there was no actual way to tell if it was actually her father or it was somebody that sounded like him. She obviously didn't see his car, so just as the voice called out again, Olivia got a text from her mom saying that she was here. Now, Olivia texted saying, "Mom, is Dad here as well?" she asked. And what really horrified her was this. "No, sweetie, your dad is still at work." Now, Olivia was nearly horrified at whatever this was. The figure just ran past the fence and ran back into the woods, never to be seen. Obviously, this confused Olivia, wondering what the hell just happened or who the hell was that thing. She obviously wasn't sure if this was just some random person sounding like her dad just to lure her into a trap or to do something much worse. Olivia just still is confused by this, but questions herself what it was. But then, as time went on, she realized that what she just encountered that day was most likely a skinwalker. She's still not sure if skinwalkers are true, or if that's what the creature really was, or something else. But still to this day, Olivia can't seem to figure it out, what that creature really was. Now, this happened to one of my friends who used to live what's in a state, which was a city named Wichita in Texas. Now, my friend's name, which we'll call her Jessie for the sake of the story. Jessie was living in Wichita in Texas with her family back in 2012, and this was around the time when she was around maybe 15. When Jessie was young, she went for walks in the forest pretty much all the time, as she has her dog, which was a Rottweiler. Of course, he was around maybe 7 at the time, but they call him Jeffy. Now, Jeffy or Jeffrey was actually a pretty cute dog. Jeffy was just his nickname, and Jeffrey was his real name. So, with that said, Jessie took Jeffrey out to do his own thing, such as doing his business. Sometimes when she goes walks in the forest, she'd take him with her. But one day, this was sometime in the summer, she decided to take Jeffrey into the forest just for a walk. It was around nighttime, but it was around the time when it was still have a little bit of daylight out. Although since it was starting to get dark, Jessie was heading back home when all of a sudden she heard what seemed to be whispers. She obviously looked around, thinking that there might have been somebody or someone there in the forest with her. But all she knew there was only just her and Jeffrey. Jeffrey just looked over and started barking at whatever the direction in here the sound was. Obviously, Jessie didn't really know what he was barking at. At first, she thought that he might have been barking at a raccoon, squirrel, or possibly another animal. But she looked, but couldn't seem to find whatever that creature was, or at least whatever made that noise. There was some trees and branches snapping, and this made Jessie even more terrified. She ended up holding close to her dog and looking around, trying to find a way to get out. She obviously had no idea as to what the hell this creature was doing or why he was there. But all of a sudden, she ended up hearing a loud, bone-chilling scream from the distance. Whatever it was, it sounded like a man. So she ended up grabbing Jeffrey's leash, and she and Jeffrey booked it down the path. They booked it down the path as fast as they could until they reached their own neighborhood. When they got there, they ended up going back into their house and stayed there for the remainder of the night, with the exception of letting the dog out in the yard. But ever since then, Jessie was confused as to what this noise was. She had no idea if it was a skinwalker or possibly something else. But she has no idea if those whispering and echoing going on in the woods was probably a skinwalker. Chances are he was probably around there, and Jessie was just lucky to be alive. Now, this happened to a good friend of mine's brother, which we'll call the brother Damien for obvious reasons. Damien was probably around maybe 24, and this happened to him sometime in 2019. He obviously was on a walk, or at least a hike, with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend lived in Arizona, and Damien just moved from California to live with his girlfriend in Arizona. Now, to be completely honest, Damien and his girlfriend were in their mid-20s, and they had graduated university together, which, of course, there's Damien, and along with his girlfriend, moved to Arizona. When they got settled in and all that, and they decided to go camping one night, it was around the time about maybe a month after they moved. Damien wanted to go camping, which his girlfriend suggested that it was a great idea, so they were packing, and as they were packing, Damien began to hear voices of his girlfriend. He wouldn't really tell if it was from outside or inside or somewhere, but it was just really weird. Damien had no idea if his girlfriend was anywhere. When he asked his girlfriend if she was talking to him, his girlfriend just gave a really weird look saying, what do you mean, Damien? I was here the whole time, or something like that. At first, Damien thought that maybe he might be hearing things, so they continued. However, they went camping one day, which was pretty nice, but as they were camping the next day, they were staying at least a weekend at a camping spot. They decided to go for a hike through a trail. Now, it was foggy on that day as it had rained maybe a day or so ago. So Damien, and along with his girlfriend, were hiking through the foggy trail. Now it was very foggy outside, and the trail was going through the woods. They ended up going through there, and since it was around maybe March, some of the leaves were kind of dead and etc. But then Damien hears the voices of his girlfriend again, even when his girlfriend was standing right next to him. Damien looked over, but couldn't seem to find anybody. But whatever it was, he ended up looking over, and said to his girlfriend, "Is that a deer?" His girlfriend looked at him and said, yeah, it looks like a deer. It has antlers, doesn't it?" Whatever it was in the distance in the fog, and Damien was about to get closer looked. But it did not flinch or move whenever it heard them. Instead, it slowly turned towards them and stood up on hind legs. Whatever it was, it looked very scary and began to let out a loud shriek. Damien, along with his girlfriend, ran down the path of the foggy forest. But as they were running down, whatever it was started chasing them. And when they got back to their campsite, his girlfriend and Damien packed up their things and loaded onto their van, and they drove off as fast as they could. When they looked back a few times, they couldn't see whatever that creature was anymore. But of course, Damien reported the issue to the The park rangers and the authorities. They ended up looking and searching all over for whatever that creature was, but they couldn't seem to find it. Damien is not sure whatever this person was or whatever that creature was in that woods that day. They had never saw it again, and they are still hesitant on camping at a certain place to this very day.